Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on this Monday for the Multifamily Market Update, brought to you by the Multifamily Investment Advisors at Keller Williams Commercial. We're going to start this off by passing the ball to Drew Heisman, our Director of Capital Analytics, to go over some information regarding the market.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Drew Heitzman. Travis, I appreciate it. Would you be able to provide me with the share screen capabilities?
Yeah, you should have it now. Let me know if it's
Appreciate
working.
that. All right. So the 10-year yield has dropped drastically over concerns of economic growth over the last 3 months, as you can see. And another component of that is also concerns over the COVID-19 Delta variant. But following the June 15th Fed policy meeting, yields have dropped 22 basis points from 1.59 to 1.37. As you can see here, this is the last Fed meeting, and since then it's dropped, and it hit a low of 1.27 last week. And another interesting statistic is the 10-year yield is currently down 38 basis points from March high of 1.75. And again, as I previously stated, it hit a low of 1.27 on July 8th. Since then, it's risen up to 1.37, which we sit at right now. One thing to keep a lookout for is the Fed will release inflation updates, and Jerome Powell will be speaking on the state of the market tomorrow, which is likely the reason for the 10 basis point rise over the last 5 days. So that's the catalyst to look for, and look forward to keeping you guys updated next week. Appreciate it, Travis.
Thanks for sharing that information, Drew. Now we're going to pass the ball over to Vince Ewing. He's actually going to be going over some information as to what investors are actually seeing when they're investing in the Chicago and Illinois markets.
Thanks for that, Travis. And I always like to key in on the fact that Chicago is often rated as the most balanced economy in the United States. Business Insider magazine rated it as the top five, one of the top 5 places to purchase a rental property. We're seeing really an influx now with people going back to work and companies kind of engaging in a hiring spree. A lot of young professionals, younger professionals, and just kind of traveling workers inbound to the Chicago market. Um, those workers are looking for, places to stay. And, it makes Chicago a very competitive place for those individuals to land. A lot of people, indicate the decline in population in Illinois. Well, actually, that kind of demographic of those middle class workers is indeed we see an uptick in people coming to Chicago in that demographic. The typical renter spends less than 20% of their income on rent here, again, making it a very competitive place in that regard. We have had, quite a few listings in which out-of-state investors have made plenty of offers on. We actually have a pipeline of out-of-state investors contacting us daily, trying to get into this market, and they're kind of seeing a slowdown in the pipeline because the inventory for them, is kind of getting snatched up very quickly. With 6,000 agents locally, 200,000 agents nationally, and 300 market centers across the country, we definitely are, able to get, the properties that we do have in front of the proper investors in a vast amount of time. So we definitely want to encourage, anyone who's interested in the Chicago market to just keep in mind that with regards to the population count here in the metro area, the properties are still undervalued. In New York, we're seeing the average property go for 1 million. The average property in LA go for 500,000. Chicago, we're still just over 300,000. So, when putting Chicago into perspective on a national level, we're still looked at as the city with the most room for growth in regards to the population count here. Again, the strong economics, 36 Fortune 500 companies finding their headquarters here in the Chicago MSE. So we're only seeing, room for growth here, and the sky's the limit.
Thanks for sharing that information, Vince. Definitely helpful information. If you all would like some additional information regarding that, please feel free to drop your information in the chat section. We'll be able to get that emailed over to you as well. Jason York, what are you actually seeing when it comes to upcoming developments in the market?
Thanks, Trav. I'm going to share my screen here. I do have an update for us. All right. So wanted to highlight a development in Gold Coast neighborhood this week, right at the intersection of Division and State Parkway. Newcastle Limited is actually developing a mixed-use asset. It's going to be 12 stories, and this development is going to be 18,000 square feet of retail space on the ground level, as well as 89 market rate units with large studio, one bed, and two bed layouts above that retail space. Some of the work that has been completed on this project is the excavation of the site, which completed the foundation and the basement of the asset. And then now the tower crane is actually in place, which is going to help the vertical construction of the building. So this is definitely a development to keep our eye out on, especially on Division Street. It's a lot of development going on Clark and Division, as well as Stateway in Division, or State Parkway in Division. So definitely an area to kind of watch out for developments. This particular building is scheduled to open in spring 2022. So this is something to keep our eye on. Thanks, Trav.
Thanks for sharing that, Jason. That's definitely some exciting news when it comes to the Gold Coast neighborhood. We're also seeing some updates in the Illinois Medical District, the West Loop, and Uptown of Chicago as well. And if you would like some additional information on that, once again, drop your information in the chat section, and we'll have Jason email over those developments. We have a few guests that's actually joining us for the meeting today. We have Allison Malzone from Stewart and Title. And then we also have Sabrina and Paul from Cost Segregation Services here to share some information with us.
Well, this is Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Paul.
Great. Thanks for having us.
So I am the real Allison Malzone. Everybody's name
I'm Sabrina.
So we had little problems logging in. So I'm Allison Malzone, and I'm with Stewart National Title. And I wanted to invite Sabrina and Paul, some co-networking that I do with them that I thought could add some value to your group. So I'll let Sabrina go ahead and introduce herself. And I'll mute my mic.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Yeah, I work with Cost Segregation Services, and Paul and I are business partners. I'm going to have him do most of the talking because I just landed at an airport, so it's super loud here. So, Paul, if you would like to kind of explain Cost Seg and how we can help commercial owners decrease their tax liability.
Sure. Yeah, let me just ask, how much knowledge of cost segregation is there here with the audience? A little bit, a lot, medium?
So we have some newer individuals that's learning the cost segregation, as well as some experienced players.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, this is a strategy that started probably 20 years ago. There was a court case. It actually originated in the Chicago area. Hospital Corporation of America was in a position where they owed about $800 million in back taxes, and they were aware of a case where Walgreens, I think in Deerfield, correct, had successfully gone to the IRS and said, look, there's parts of our buildings that aren't going to last 39 years. We should be able to depreciate them sooner. So it went to the highest tax court in the country. They won. The IRS was asked, why can't every building owner in America do this? And they said they can, but we're not going to tell them about it. So that opened the floodgates. When it started, it was really for 20 million plus buildings. The fees were six figures, but over the years, this has grown so that really any commercial or rental property is a candidate for cost segregation. And the strategy can reduce income taxes about $70,000 per million in cost basis. So what we're doing is we're looking at up to 100 potential building components down to the striping on the parking lot that are really an earlier life. And by doing this, it gives you a huge additional depreciation expense. For example, in the room I'm sitting in, there's a ceiling fan, fire alarm, carpet, window blinds. All of those are in earlier life. But we're up to, I think, 27,000 of these studies done. We've done portfolios up to $1.5 billion. And yeah, it just is a really growing field. The 2017 tax bill made this more powerful than ever. They have extended bonus depreciation to even existing buildings. What that means is prior to this change, bonus depreciation applied to new construction only, and it was like at a 40% level. So what that meant is that whatever we found in this earlier life, they could take the whole thing in the first year. Now they've extended it, so even on an existing building acquired after September of 17, whatever we find in a 5 or 15-year category, which could be a third of the building, they can take in that first year of ownership. So it really is a very powerful strategy now. Any questions so far?
No questions so far, but did you have a presentation? Are you able to share that?
Are we able to
think you
get
all
that
had
up,
sent it.
Sabrina or Allison? Any?
I don't know if you guys put a presentation together or not.
Yeah, Paul, can you share your screen?
Let me see here.
There was an email, that presentation. Did you get that one?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Is that coming up?
Yes.
That came to me Friday, Sabrina.
Has anybody with the group done anything with any cost segregation with your clients? I'm curious if anybody's utilized the services.
Not at this time.
No?
Not yet, Allison.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that.
Paul, I just resent that.
Okay, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
I think that is Chicago, actually.
Yes, it is. The river.
There we go. So yeah. So it's a US tax code approved process. It's not a gray area. It's a black and white issue. It significantly lowers income taxes. Most owners are not going to own a property 39 years to take all of that benefit. So it's always better to have $1 and the use of it today instead of in 39 years when $1 is going to be worth less. So that's kind of the general principle behind it. I mean, a lot of our big real estate movers and shakers, they are routinely doing this every time they acquire a building. And this is interesting on the bottom here, the IRS has specifically called cost segregation a certain method. So they said you need to use at least a reasonable method. So it's a little bit of a corny example, but if you remember the old commercial breaking down a hamburger, we're sort of doing that with commercial buildings also. So this is an example of 5 and 7 year property, and you can just read that for yourself. Most building owners would agree that their 5 and 7 year property should be depreciated as such. Now, the people that don't, it's a little bit like giving a long-term interest-free loan to the IRS. Here's some examples of 15-year property. And you can see on the chart there, you're still getting depreciation going forward, but when you're stacking this in front, it can make just a tremendous difference in your tax situation. Any questions, please stop me here. So this is another example from one of our reports of how we break this down. Our reports are the supporting document that allows your tax professional to take this missed benefit. And the big four accounting firms, they have their own cost seg departments, but 99% of CPA firms just really cannot be doing this correctly. So here's some examples. Let's go to the third one, the office warehouse. That was a $5.2 million building. They were able to reduce taxes $312,000. That was an ROI of 33 to 1. And the time value of that money over the 39-year period is a multiple of that. So it's, yeah, this is something we hear sometimes. My CPA has done this. On average, they get maybe half of our benefit when they try, and may not be done correctly either. Okay, the building systems, this is another benefit of cost segregation. The 2014 tangible property regulations allowed us to break down a building into its 9 building systems. So what that does for a building owner is, let's say next year, after we've defined these systems, they have a plumbing system expense that is roughly 1/3 or less of the system we've defined. In that case, they get expense it. If it was over that threshold, they would need to capitalize it over 39 years. So this in itself is a reason to do a study. I had a $75 million ski resort a couple years ago that didn't even need the tax benefits because they had a rough snow year, but the CPA had a report done just to line everything up from the beginning from this standpoint. Something we hear is, especially if somebody has not heard about this, they kind of think it's too good to be true. They think it's going to cause an audit. We've had about a dozen that we're aware of that the IRS has even looked at. And most of those were the case of rookie IRS agents that we had to explain their own rulings on cost segregation. So that's alarming, I guess, but it's not a cost seg issue. It's an IRS issue that could happen with anything on your tax return. So our reports, it's an impressive document. It's not the low-hanging fruit for them to make trouble. They almost would have to do another study on top of ours to even question any of that. And this is a quote from the AICPA. This is the professional group of CPAs. They have 350,000 members, but they recommend that this should routinely be recommended by the CPAs for just about any commercial building. Now, are they all doing that? No, but we're out there trying to educate them. And I would say most of our business does come from CPAs. It's just routine. When their clients get a building, they have them do this. So your contacts that haven't done this, they don't care who they hear about it from. They just don't want to overpay taxes. And this also from the Journal of Accountancy, really not a concern about this causing a problem with the IRS. Yeah, so I mentioned bonus depreciation and the tangible property regulations. Cost segregation is the foundation. There's some very generous provisions of the tax code out there, but you can't take advantage of it unless you have these building systems and the components defined. And this is, I mentioned the tangible property regulations. I don't want to get into too much detail, but again, it allows it to much more easily be able to expense going forward. And what our clients do is they really think of us as their back office cost seg departments. Whenever they make a significant expenditure on an existing building, this is something that's front and center with them. This is an interesting strategy here too. We call it partial asset disposition. If you look at that dumpster there, when your contacts do a renovation, all that disposed of material that goes into the dumpster and is thrown away, we can do a cost segregation study not only on the renovation expense, but we assign a value to what was disposed of, which can then be taken as a loss, less what had already been depreciated. And this is something I'd say maybe 15% of people that should be doing it are, but that's just a very valuable strategy. Also, when we do this partial asset disposition, we identify the removal cost, which can also be expensed. If you don't do this partial asset, they need to be capitalized over 39 years. So this is an example of an auto dealership. They very frequently are doing facelifts on their properties. Hotels would be in that same category. But it was sort of a three-part benefit. For the original building, the cost segregation tax reduction was $134,000. The partial asset disposition benefit was $53,000, and the improvement expense benefit was $126,000. So that was over $314,000 in tax reduction. So that's very significant. They'd have to move a lot of cars to make up for that figure. Another thing that the repair regulations allow is once we define these building systems, we can look back on their depreciation schedule years, and if there were improvements that could have been expensed under the tangible property regulations, they can go back retroactively and take that as an expense. So here's a couple of examples. The first one, it was over $500,000 tax savings. And the second one, it was 1.1 million. So these are just, I guess you can call them some obscure provisions, but it is real money. And a lot of CPAs, when we go over these things, this is new to them too. And that's a question we get is, why doesn't my CPA know about this? Their expertise is a mile wide and an inch deep. We're the opposite, so to speak. So there's been an average of one change in the tax code a day the last 10 years. So that doesn't mean they're not good CPAs. It's just that they're not specialists in this area, just like we don't try to do somebody's taxes. Okay, this is what I mentioned in the beginning, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It extended bonus depreciation to 100% even on an existing building. So, I mean, this could be a 100-year-old storefront, on Clark in Wrigleyville. I mean, that qualifies for 100% bonus depreciation now. So it really turbocharged this benefit. And that was part of the intent of that bill. It was basically the government telling people to go out and buy or improve buildings. So this is an example of what bonus depreciation can do. This is a $8 million self-storage facility purchased November of 17. And the first year of ownership, if they did not do cost segregation, if the CPA did it the easy way and just threw it on 39 years, they would have depreciated $26,000 in 2017. So under the old cost segregation rules, they would have depreciated $154,000. Under the bonus depreciation rules, they are able to depreciate $700,000. So I can't think of anybody, if given the choice between 26 or 700, would take that little number. It just is a gigantic impact. I've had people tell me this is the best thing that they did all year. And again, our biggest problem sometimes is it sounds too good to be true. Okay, so these are some more examples. Talks about the impact of the bonus depreciation. A little bit about us. I think we're the biggest. If we're not, we're among them. I've been doing this 15 years, and again, we're up over 20,000 studies. Our CEO was involved in the original court case back a number of years ago. Our studies take 6 to 8 weeks. We are currently doing studies for clients that have extended their 2020 tax return and they're still able to apply this. So these are a list of the things we're involved in. And for realtors or CPAs, this is often another revenue stream. It adds value. It differentiates you from your competition. You know, and is your competition explaining this to their contacts? I would bet not. So the point of purchase is the ideal time to introduce cost segregation, although you can go back as much as 15 years and take that missed benefit. And so who can benefit recently purchased? If you've owned it for up to 15 years, sometimes they have owned the building 30 years, which the original building is not a cost segregation candidate, but they very likely have done improvements in the last 15. So that would be a good candidate. And just about any commercial building type is a candidate here. Yeah, we do offer referral fees too. If that is of interest, you can see that can add up. I've got a CPA that he's probably made 6 figures in referral fees. And I think more importantly than that, you know, he's differentiated himself from his competition. He's solidified that client relationship. They aren't going anywhere. So there really are no losers with this. And I guess you could say the IRS, but oh well. Yeah, if you do have contacts, Sabrina and I would be happy to give you some suggestions of how to go about that. Sometimes, you know, just a listing sheet would be enough to generate an estimate. But it's a very soft approach. There isn't anybody that's offended by the magnitude of this offer. You know, a $10 million building, you know, you're talking over $500,000 in tax reduction. So they may have already done it. They may be in a position where, you know, they don't need the deductions, but it's just from our experience, people are very pleased to be aware of this. And again, maybe for whatever reason, they're not qualified, but. So for the estimates, we just need to know the type of building, the cost basis without land. It's helpful to know if, especially in Chicago proper, that there's a small lot attached. That's something we would want to know up front. That's going to affect our estimate. There's just not as much the land improvements act. So we get the depreciation schedule, we would present it, or we have realtors that will forward it on and just say, you know, Bill, I thought you might want to hear about that. You know, if you're interested, contact Sabrina. So it's not something that it takes a lot of your time, but it's a very easy process for the client. Basically, what we need for them is we take site photos, get the depreciation schedule or cost basis, whatever backup they have, such as an appraisal report, site survey, or plans. And that's it.
Thanks for sharing that information today, Paul. I definitely want to thank you all for presenting that presentation. Do you mind you and Sabrina actually leaving your contact information in the chat section, just in case some people actually want to reach out to you in regards to your services? That would be great. It definitely seems like a great way to increase cash flow through those tax deduction, sorry, and the tax expenses that you can all be utilizing.
Yeah, well, if you have somebody sitting on a fence over an acquisition, I mean, we've seen this put it over the edge positively. You know, it's a major benefit. It essentially amounts to about a 7% building discount. That's how I kind of look at it.
Wow. I do have one hopefully quick question, if I may. How does your advice vary when, say a client of ours has a 7-year hold period for an investment versus a 15-year or later hold period. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Generally speaking, if somebody's going to keep it at least 3+ years, they're a candidate for this. If it's less than that, or if they're flipping a property, that's not a good candidate.
Sure. Do things change if the holding period is, of course, meeting the 5-year or 3 to 5 year requirement, but if they plan to hold it for 15 versus 60 years, would using cost segregation, would the way that you advise change based on the hold period, I should say?
No, I think 15 years, I mean, that definitely would be a very good candidate. And anybody over 3+ years.
All right.
And a matter of fact, we had once a gentleman in LA. He had a $50 million building, and he knew he was only going to have it 1 year, but he was 92 years old, and he said, I don't care, that a year is a long time at my age, so he did it. But generally, they want to keep it at least 3+ years, I would say. If they're bringing a building in from a 1031 exchange, that can be a good candidate. We have a lot of clients who will do a 1031 on the back end, and that kind of eliminates the recapture issue.
Definitely some great questions there, Cody. See Sabrina's contact information to keep the conversation going there. And before we just end the webinar, I just want to pass the ball to our Director of Investor Relations, Kelly, just to go over a few of our properties in our inventory.
All righty, thanks, Travis. And that was very, very informational. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Travis. I do have an update on some investment opportunities with Multifamily Investment Advisors. First, I want to talk about 5228 South Blackstone. This is a rare opportunity to acquire a trophy wealth preservation asset. It's located in Hyde Park. It's a mixed-use property in downtown Hyde Park. It's a 40-unit building. It has strong long-term retail tenants, including a long-term national tenant in Boston market. So definitely reach out to us for more information on that asset. Next up, in the 100-unit count range, we have an opportunity to pick up a 114-unit Southside portfolio located in the Brainerd and Chatham neighborhoods, with the low per unit price of less than $60,000 per unit. These combined portfolios offer an opportunity to pick up a critical mass of assets within a few miles of each other, and with great cash flow from day one. So for more information on these opportunities, reach out to us at the Multifamily Investment Advisors at www.chicagomultifamilyinvestments.com. You can email us as well as at investment@kwcommercial.com or by phone 312-863-8990. I will be posting all these contact methods in the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Travis.
Thanks for that, Kelly. And once again, thank you all for tuning in to the Multifamily Market Update this Monday. We look forward to seeing you next Monday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.